Hej och välkomna till NTD Nyheter. Jag heter Cecilia Samuelsson. Här är våra rubriker. 6 viktiga val runt om i världen 2024. Harvards rektor meddelar sin avgång efter bara 6 månader på posten. Telefonbedrägerier med AI inbringar miljarder enligt expert. Först i Europa, sedan världen. Kommunismens början i Europa. Förutom presidentvalet i USA i år sker andra val runt om i världen. Här är några av de viktigaste valen i världen i år.
Den 13 januari hålls presidentval i Taiwan. Den sittande presidenten Tsai Ing-wen är förhindrad att ställa upp för omval på grund av att mandatperioden är tidsbegränsad. Hennes partis kandidat till presidentposten, Lai Ching-te, är för närvarande Tsais vicepresident. Han har lovat att fortsätta stärka Taiwans försvar mot hot från det kommunistiska Kina.
The whole world wants to know whether the people of Taiwan will continue to move forward on the path of democracy in this major election, or whether they will choose to rely on China, follow a pro-China path, and lock Taiwan into China again.
Opinionsundersökningar visar att Lai är den ledande kandidaten och har ett försprång framför kandidaterna från oppositionspartierna Kuomintang och Taiwans People's Party. Den 15 till 17 mars kommer Ryssland att hålla sitt presidentval. President Vladimir Putin har suttit vid makten i 24 år och den 8 december meddelade han att han ställer upp för en 5:e mandatperiod. Det skulle innebära ytterligare 6 år på posten fram till 2030. Det senaste valet 2021 dominerades av omfattande rapporter om valfusk. Eftersom de allra flesta oppositionella antingen sitter i fängelse eller befinner sig utanför Ryssland är Putin inställd på att vinna.
I want to emphasize again that any attempt to sow interethnic and interreligious discord, to split our society, is a betrayal, a crime against the whole of Russia. We will not allow anyone to divide Russia, which is the only one we have.
En seger för Putin skulle garantera att kriget i Ukraina fortsätter. Kreml har sagt att tanken på fredssamtal på Ukrainas villkor är orealistisk. För första gången kommer valet att äga rum under 3 dagar och det kommer att omfatta 4 regioner i Ukraina som Ryssland nyligen annekterade under kriget. I världens folkrikaste demokrati, Indien, hålls allmänna val mellan april och maj. Premiärminister Narendra Modi siktar på en 3:e mandatperiod. Det är ytterligare 5 år. Undersökningar visar att Modi är mycket populär efter ett decennium vid makten. Under hans ledning har Indien spelat en större roll i den globala diplomatin och anammat de globala klimatmålen.
Our target by 2030, emissions intensity has to be reduced by 45%. We have decided that we will increase the share of non-fossil fuels to 50%, and we will also keep moving towards the goal of 2070 and net zero.
Modis regeringsparti vann stora segrar i provinsvalen i december, vilket gav honom en skjuts framåt inför det nationella valet. Men han står fortfarande inför en utmaning från en oppositionsallians bestående av 28 partier. I sommar den 2 juni kommer Mexiko att hålla presidentval. Den sittande presidenten Andrés Manuel López Obrador är förhindrad att kandidera igen på grund av att mandatperioden är tidsbegränsad. Mexiko kommer alltså att få en ny president och för första gången ser det ut att bli en kvinna. Presidenten och hans parti stöder Claudia Sheinbaum. Hon är före detta borgmästare i Mexico City. Opinionsundersökningar visar att Sheinbaum har dubbelt så stort stöd som sin oppositionsrival Xochitl Galvez. Mexikos president sitter en mandatperiod på 6 år. Därefter den 6 till 9 juni kommer medborgarna i 27 EU-länder att rösta om ledamöter till Europaparlamentet. Omkring 400 miljoner röstberättigade kommer att välja sina företrädare. Det innebär totalt 720 platser. Ledamöterna sitter i 5 år. Inget parti har haft majoritet, så parlamentet är beroende av att partierna bildar koalitioner. För närvarande finns det en stor koalition mellan Folkpartiet och Socialisterna. Högerinriktade politiker har nyligen vunnit val i Italien och Nederländerna. Det är värt att se om den trenden kommer att fortsätta i EU-valet 2024. Den 5 november är det dags för presidentval i USA. Den sittande presidenten, demokraten Joe Biden, kandiderar för en andra mandatperiod. Samtidigt ställer den tidigare presidenten Donald Trump, republikan, också upp för sin andra mandatperiod. Det kommer sannolikt att bli en revanschmatch mellan Biden och Trump, precis som 2020. De senaste opinionsundersökningarna visar att Trump dominerar den republikanska primärvalskampanjen.
Den 2 januari meddelade Harvards rektor Claudine Gay att hon avgår. NTD:s Daniel Monahan berättar mer om hennes avgång efter bara 6 månader på posten.
Beslutet kommer efter en tumultartad månad efter Claudine Gays vittnesmål i kongressen om antisemitism på campus.
Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
Gay utsattes snart för påtryckningar med krav på att avgå från Harvards judiska samfund och andra. Universitetet drabbades också ekonomiskt eftersom vissa rika donatorer avbröt eller drog tillbaka sin finansiering. Harvard-alumnen och miljardinvesteraren Bill Ackman skrev på X att han var personligen medveten om mer än $1 miljard i avslutade donationer från en liten grupp av Harvards mest generösa judiska och icke-judiska alumner. Mer än 70 politiker undertecknade ett brev där de krävde att Harvard skulle avskeda Gay. I brevet krävdes också att Liz McGill vid Universitetet av Pennsylvania och Sally Kornbluth vid MIT skulle avskedas. Båda vittnade vid samma kongressförhör och vägrade också att ge ett definitivt ja eller nej-svar på om uppmaningar till folkmord på judar strider mot deras skolors uppförandekoder gällande mobbning och trakasserier. University of Pennsylvanias rektor, Liz McGill, avgick några dagar efter utfrågningen. Efter Gays avgång skrev kongressledamot Elise Stefanik på X 2 borta. Förra månaden sa Harvards alumnförenings verkställande utskott att man enhälligt och otvetydigt stödde rektorn.
But on another front, a House committee widened its probe into anti-Semitism at Harvard to include an investigation into plagiarism in Gay's academic writing.
Gay fick också utstå omfattande kritik efter anklagelser om plagiering, inklusive flera fall av saknade citattecken och hänvisningar. Jacob Miller, Harvard-student och Hill L-ordförande, sa att Gays avgång bara är det första steget.
For me, the most important issue has been the anti-Semitism we've been seeing on a nearly daily basis across the school.
I sin avskedsansökan sa Gay att det har varit upprörande att få mina åtaganden att motverka hat och upprätthålla vetenskaplig stringens ifrågasatta och skrämmande att utsättas för personliga attacker och hot som drivs av rasfientlighet. Harvard Corporation försvarade Gay och sa att de accepterade hennes uppsägning med sorg. The Corporation, som är universitetets styrande organ, sa att hon visade anmärkningsvärd motståndskraft inför djupt personliga och ihållande attacker. Även om Gay har avgått som rektor kommer hon att stanna kvar vid Harvard och återgå till en position vid skolans fakultet.
Rösten som ringer kanske inte är din sons. Telefonbedrägerier med AI-röster ger stora pengar till brottslingar som enkelt klonar barns röster och lurar familjemedlemmar att ge dem pengar.
Telefonbedrägerier med AI ökar. Förra året stal kriminella uppskattningsvis $10 miljarder från amerikaner genom sådana bedrägerier.
They're ruthless, they're heartless.
Cybersäkerhetsexperten John Young är specialiserad på att bekämpa dessa telefonbedrägerier med AI. Han säger att bedragarna i allmänhet riktar in sig på mor- och farföräldrar och använder deras barnbarns röster för att övertyga dem om att de har blivit kidnappade, att deras bil har gått sönder någonstans eller att de sitter i fängelse. Sedan ber bedragarna om pengar.
A lot of them are from countries where if they make one score for say $1,000 or $2,000, they immediately go into entrepreneur mode. And they start hiring other people. Suddenly they can hire 10 people do it. And then they have a few more of these successful scores. And before you know it, you have a data center somewhere, a call center with tons of people.
Young säger att många barn har videoklipp på Instagram eller TikTok där bedragarna enkelt kan hitta deras röster och lägga in dem i AI-programvaran. I ett scenario berättar de AI-genererade rösterna desperat för mor- och farföräldrarna att de har blivit kidnappade. Och sedan kommer kidnapparens röst och beordrar dem att skicka pengar till ett bankkonto.
Ask a personal question. Is ask, hey, where did we go on vacation last time? What was your childhood nickname? And if that is not what you're expecting, then this is most likely fraud.
AI-experten Martin Rand säger att detta är ett sätt att bekräfta om rösten är äkta. Om du kan få in frågan innan den förmodade kidnapparen lägger sig i. Ett annat sätt är att planera i förväg.
my favorite thing is to have a security word. So one of the security words we used a few years ago was carrot. So if any of my kids were calling, and we felt like there was something off, we would just ask them what their security word.
Teknikentreprenören Dan Martell säger att människor också bör lita på sin magkänsla. Om personen i andra änden inte verkar verklig är den förmodligen inte det.
Vi är strax tillbaka.
Den högsta konsten är vacker, häpnadsväckande, tidlös och berörande. Upplev konst med 5000 års historia. Inspirerad av det gudomliga. Upplev Shenyun.
Det förfall vi ser idag har skapats under lång tid. Det började för hundratals år sedan då dess huvudsakliga drivkraft framträdde, ateismen och förvillelsen av mänskligheten. Det var Karl Marx som skapade en ideologi för att omfatta bedrägeriet i alla dess former, och det var Vladimir Lenin som omsatte teorin i brutal praktik.
Three, the French Revolution. The impact of the 1789 French Revolution was massive and far-reaching. It destroyed the monarchy, overturned the traditional social order, and began a system of mob rule. Engels said, quote, "A revolution is certainly the most authoritarian thing there is. It is the act whereby one part of the population imposes its will upon the other part by means of rifles, bayonets, and cannon. Authoritarian means, if such there be at all. And if the victorious party does not want to have fought in vain, it must maintain this rule by means of the terror which its arms inspire in the reactionists." The Jacobin club that took power after the French Revolution knew this well. After sending French King Louis XVI to the guillotine, Jacobin leader Maximilien Robespierre's reign of terror executed another 70,000 people, most of whom were completely innocent. Later generations wrote on Robespierre's epitaph, "Whoe'er thou art who passest, pray, don't grieve that I am dead. For had I been alive this day, thou'dst been here in my stead." The three policies of political terror, economic terror, and religious terror practiced by the Jacobin Club in the French Revolution appeared as a prelude to the tyranny of the Communist Party. In a precursor to the political killings under Lenin and Joseph Stalin, the French revolutionaries instituted the Revolutionary Tribunal and set up guillotines in Paris and other places. Revolutionary committees decided whether a prisoner was guilty, while special agents of the National Convention held authority over the military and administrative subdivisions. The sans-culottes, or proletariat, held status as the most revolutionary class. According to the Law of 22 Prairial, enacted on June 10, 1794, pre-trial and defense counsel were banned, and all convictions were required to result in the death penalty. In lieu of evidence, rumors, inference, and personal judgment were all valid for the purpose of obtaining a verdict. When the law went into effect, it greatly expanded the reign of terror, with an estimated 300,000 to 500,000 people jailed as suspects. Likewise, the economic terror of the Jacobins seemed to preface the war communism that would be implemented in Russia by Lenin. A law passed on July 26, 1793, made hoarding an offense punishable by death. One of the greatest adversaries of the French revolutionaries was the Catholic faith. During the Reign of Terror, Robespierre, painter Jacques-Louis David, and their supporters established a form of atheism based on Enlightenment trends called the Cult of Reason to replace Catholicism. On October 5, 1793, the National Convention abolished the Christian calendar and instituted the Republican calendar. On November 10th, the Notre Dame de Paris was rechristened the Temple of Reason, and an actress portrayed a goddess of reason as an object of worship for the masses. The Cult of Reason was quickly enforced throughout Paris, within a week, only 3 Christian churches remained operating. Religious terror filled Paris. Priests were arrested en masse, and some were executed. The French Revolution not only provided a model for the Soviet regime established by Lenin, it is also closely connected to the development of Marxism. François-Noël Babeuf, a utopian socialist who lived through the French Revolution and was executed in 1797 for his involvement in the conspiracy of the equals, advocated the abolition of private property. Marx considered Babeuf to be the first revolutionary communist. France was heavily influenced by socialist ideologies in the 19th century. The League of Outlaws, which took Babeuf as its spiritual founder, developed rapidly in Paris. German tailor Wilhelm Weitling joined the Outlaws in 1835. Under his leadership, the secret society renamed itself the League of the Just. In a meeting held in June 1847, the League of the Just merged with the Communist Correspondence Committee led by Marx and Engels to form the Communist League led by those two men. In February 1848, Marx and Engels published the foundational work of the international communist movement, the Communist Manifesto. The French Revolution was just the beginning of a long period of social turmoil throughout Europe as revolutions and insurrections took place one after another from the end of Napoleonic rule, affecting Spain, Greece, Portugal, Germany, various parts of Italy, Belgium, and Poland. By 1848, revolution and war spread throughout Europe, providing an optimal environment for the spread of communism. In 1864, Marx and others established the International Working Men's Association, also known as the First International, placing Marx as the spiritual leader of the communist workers' movement. As effective leader of the First International, Marx worked to create a core group of strictly disciplined revolutionaries who would rally the workers to insurrection. At the same time, he found a need to banish those who disagreed with him from the organization. Mikhail Bakunin, the first major Russian Marxist, gathered many recruits for the communist movement, but Marx accused him of being a Tsarist agent and expelled him from the First International. In 1871, the French branch of the First International launched the first communist revolution, the Paris Commune. 4. Communism debuts in Paris. The Paris Commune was established following France's defeat in the Franco-Prussian War of 1870. Though French Emperor Napoleon III had surrendered, the Prussian armies lay siege to Paris before withdrawing. The humiliation of surrender, combined with long-standing unrest among the French workers, led to a general uprising in Paris, and the newly established French Third Republic withdrew to Versailles, leaving a power vacuum in the capital. In March 1871, the Paris Commune began with the rebellion of armed mobs and bandits from the lowest rungs of society, led by socialists, communists, anarchists, and other activists. The movement was affiliated with and heavily influenced by the First International. It aimed at using the proletariat as agents of revolution to destroy traditional culture and transform the political and economic structure of society. What followed was killing and destruction on a massive scale as the rebels laid waste to the exquisite relics, monuments, and art of Paris. One worker asked rhetorically, "What good does it do me for there to be monuments, operas, cafe concerts, where I have never set foot because I don't have the money?" A witness to the destruction said, "It is bitter, relentless, and cruel, and is, no doubt, a sad legacy of the bloody revolution of 1789. Another described the Commune as, quote, "a revolution of blood and violence, and the most criminal act the world has ever seen." Its participants were, quote, "madmen, drunk with wine and blood, and its leaders ruthless desperadoes, the refuse of France." The struggle between tradition and anti-tradition had begun in the French Revolution and continued to play out 8 decades later. The honorary chairman of the Paris Commune said, quote, "Two principles share France, that of legitimacy and that of popular sovereignty. The principle of popular sovereignty rallies all men of the future, the masses who, tired of being exploited, seek to smash the framework that suffocates them." The extremism of the Commune originated in part from the hate-filled ideas of Henri de Saint-Simon, a utopian socialist who considered the welfare of a country proportionate to its number of workers. He advocated the death of the rich, whom he believed to be parasites. In The Civil War in France, Marx described the Commune as a communist state. Quote, "The direct antithesis to the empire was the Commune, the cry of social republic, with which the February Revolution was ushered in by the Paris proletariat, did but express a vague aspiration after a republic that was not only to supersede the monarchical form of class rule, but class rule itself. The Commune was the positive form of that republic. Additionally," he wrote, quote, "the Commune intended to abolish that class property which makes the labor of the many the wealth of the few." The Paris Commune pioneered the characteristics of communist revolution. The Vendôme column commemorating Napoleon was destroyed. Churches were looted, clergy slaughtered, and religious teachings banned from schools. The rebels dressed the statues of saints in modern clothing and affixed smoking pipes to their mouths. Women participated in the savagery with enthusiasm that sometimes surpassed that of their male counterparts. A Chinese person called Zhang Deyi, who was in Paris at the time, described the situation, quote, "The rebellious not only included male thugs, women also joined in the rampage. They took up lodging in high buildings and feasted on delicacies, but their pleasure was short-lived, as they were unaware of the danger coming to them. On the verge of defeat, they looted and burned buildings. Priceless treasures were reduced to ashes. Hundreds of female rebels were arrested and admitted that it was mainly the women who led the arson. The violent frenzy that accompanied the fall of the Paris Commune is not surprising. On May 23, 1871, before the last line of defense had fallen, the Commune authorities ordered the burning of the Luxembourg Palace, the seat of the French Senate, the Tuileries Palace, and the Louvre, the Paris Opera House, the Paris City Hall, the Ministry of the Interior, the Ministry of Justice, the Palais Royal, and the luxury restaurants and high-class apartment buildings on both sides of the Champs-Élysées were also to be destroyed rather than allowed to fall into the hands of the government. At 7 p.m., Commune members carrying tar, asphalt, and turpentine started fires at multiple locations across Paris. The magnificent Tuileries Palace was lost to the flames. Fortunately, the arsonists' attempts to torch the nearby Louvre were foiled by the arrival of Adolphe Thiers' troops, who extinguished the flames. Marx quickly readjusted his theory in the wake of the Paris Commune. The only modification he made to the Communist Manifesto was that the working class should break down and destroy the state mechanism, not simply take it over. 5. First Europe, then the world. Marx's updated manifesto made communism even more destructive in nature and widespread in influence. On July 14, 1889, 6 years after Marx's death, 13 years after the dissolution of the First International, and 100 years after the French Revolution, the International Workers' Congress was revived. Marxists rallied again in what historians refer to as the Second International. Guided by communism and voicing slogans like "Liberate Humanity" and "Abolish Social Classes," the European workers' movement established itself rapidly. Lenin said, quote, "The services rendered by Marx and Engels to the working class may be expressed in a few words thus. They taught the working class to know itself and be conscious of itself, and they substituted science for dreams." The devil used lies and indoctrination to infect popular movements with communist ideology. More and more people accepted its ideology. By 1914, there were close to 30 global and local socialist organizations and countless more trade unions and cooperatives. At the outbreak of World War I, there were more than 10 million union members and more than 7 million cooperative members. In How to Change the World, Reflections on Marx and Marxism, historian Eric Hobsbawm wrote, quote, "In these European countries, virtually all social thought, whether or not politically motivated like the socialist movement or labor movement, are visibly influenced by Marx." At the same time, communism began to spread to Russia and the East via Europe. From 1886 to 1890, Lenin studied Das Kapital, prior to which he had begun translating the Communist Manifesto into Russian. Lenin was imprisoned and later exiled. At the start of World War I, he was living in Western Europe. World War I led to the triumph of communism in Russia. At the time of the 1917 revolution that toppled Tsar Nicholas II, Lenin was in Switzerland. Half a year later, he was back in Russia and seized power in the October Revolution. Russia was a nation with ancient traditions, a vast population, and abundant natural resources. The establishment of the Soviet regime on the territory of the world's largest country was a huge boon for the world communist movement. Just as World War I assisted the rise of the Russian communists, World War II prompted the communist movement to proliferate across Eurasia and swallow up China. Stalin said, quote, "This war is not as in the past. Whoever occupies a territory also imposes on it his own social system." After World War II, the Soviet Union became a superpower, armed with nuclear weapons, and it manipulated world affairs to promote communism throughout the world. Winston Churchill said, quote, "A shadow has fallen upon the scenes so lately lighted by the Allied victory. Nobody knows what Soviet Russia and its Communist International Organization intends to do in the immediate future, or what are the limits, if any, to their expansive and proselytizing tendencies." During the Cold War, the free world engaged in a fierce confrontation with the communist camp that spread across 4 continents. Like a Taoist Taiji symbol, one half was cold communism and the other was hot communism. The nations of the free world, democratic in form, slowly turned socialist in essence.
Detta var den andra delen av del 2 i kommunismens början i Europa i vår specialserie Hur kommunismens spöke styr världen. För att se hela avsnittet gå till NTD Sveriges kanaler på YouTube, Facebook och Ganjing World. Tack för att ni har tittat och på återseende.